All right, we're recording.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. I know it's Friday afternoon and late in the afternoon and a long day and probably a long week as well. So we'll try to make it a little bit fun and a little bit interactive as we go through the process. I'm going to be presenting a little bit on defining measurable and meaningful learning outcomes at the program, course, and unit level. I am a professor at the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga, and I teach predominantly today in a doctoral program in leadership and decision making, which is hybrid, but starting this coming fall, I'll also be teaching in a purely online doctoral program in instructional practice, as well as a bachelor's degree in applied leadership. So I've been involved with QM for quite a number of years and really excited to be here with you guys today. If you would just post in the chat what your role is, if you're an instructional designer, an administrator, a faculty member, just something so I can gauge a little bit what the different roles are that people are coming from. Instructional designer, lots of instructional designers, great. Faculty, instructional technologist. Okay, terrific. Let's see. Oh my goodness, 2:20 in the morning. Wow, that is a dedicated QMer, instructional designer. So it looks like we have a large number of instructional designers, a few faculty. This is predominantly coming from the faculty role. However, I'll tell you how we use the instructional designers in the same process so that you can apply the same principles that we're looking at here. All right, the session outcomes. These are the outcomes that were posted. Participants will be able to identify any specific gaps in their current SLOs, especially alignment with program SLOs or any lack of measurability there. Participants will apply backward design principles to the program, course, and unit learning outcomes. And I'm going to focus mostly on program and course, though if you're already involved in QM, you already know the alignment principles for how to go backwards to the unit level. And at the very, very end of the session, participants will be able to develop an initial plan for a collaborative SLO development process along these lines. So just to talk a little bit about how we looked at them, we looked at learning outcomes at the course and the unit levels, and those kind of already exist. Those exist in the QM principles, in the standards, in all the things that we're doing. It's very important that there's alignment for our learning outcomes to provide the learners with a clear path of, to be able to do this, I'm going to be able to do this and this and this and this, and all of those things are going to feed to it. This principle aligns directly with the QM rubric and specifically with the standards 2.1 and 2.2 directly. We're going to talk directly about 2.1 and 2.2, but then there's also a little bit of connection towards the end with 3.1, 4.1, 5.1, and 6.1. So we're going to look a good bit at the QM standards and how they apply. So we're going to take it backwards a step. We're going to talk about the learning outcomes at the program and course level. So I know that QM's doing some work on some program processes and program standards, but in the meantime, because I've been to a couple of sessions, in the meantime, we're going to just kind of talk about it amongst ourselves. So if we look at the program level, we might consider standards similar to 2.1 and 2.2. So maybe we would look at something like, the program learning objectives or competencies describe outcomes that are measurable. Hopefully they do. Once in a while, we run into horror stories where they don't. We had a faculty member tell us that she didn't need program outcomes. She could tell when her students got it. So that was a really fun part of that process. Another way to look at it might be that the course level learning objectives and competencies describe outcomes that are measurable and consistent with the program level outcomes or competencies. So you can basically see that I've stolen liberally from the wording of 2.1 and 2.2 to try to look at it one step or further back to the program level. On our campus in 2000, and I believe it was 13, could have been 14, we had a new provost come in and he started looking at things and was looking for curriculum maps, looking for ways that things were linked together. We were just starting to get into QM, so he was reading all about QM and learning about all of that. And we discovered that the majority of our programs didn't have a written, clear program map of how the program outcomes were being met by the course level outcomes. There was a lot of academic drift happening. For those of you that read that book or at least know that term, we were having a lot of issues with academic drift. We came up with this particular logo, for lack of a better word, when we were doing our curriculum mapping process. And we started out thinking that we were going to go all the way back to the institutional student learning outcomes. And for that, we were looking at the undergraduate level at our gen ed. It turned out that our gen ed was not accessible, ASS, in any way. We ended up actually having to kind of drop that process. We're still in the process of revising and assessing our gen ed to make sure that we're doing what we say we're doing and that we have found a way to map it to every student's program. So we're going to focus on the next levels today. The program student learning outcomes. What are the things you say in your program catalog, in your program description, that your learners are going to be able to do by the time that they finish the program? And then looking at that, taking that design back to alignment with the course learning outcomes. So we do a deductive design and then an inductive delivery. We work on clear, identifying, measurable outcomes. This particular provost realized that he could not just make an edict and say everybody has to be in alignment and it all has to be perfect. He had to create a collaborative process. We have, at the time, 2 or 3 instructional designers in our Center for Teaching and Learning and 4 additional faculty who had experience with instructional design and had done a good bit of work and were starting to delve into the QM and other processes. And so we created a collaborative process where one of those people met with each faculty department over a good amount of time to make sure that they were able to map their program outcomes from their course outcomes. And so, as you can probably imagine, instructional designers and faculty members, this was a quite tedious and potentially fraught with concern issue that we had to do, but we knew that we had to have buy-in for its success. So I'll give a couple of examples. One of them is we went through this process, and in one particular department, and I was engaged in this process, so it was kind of fun. We're sitting around the table. We've got the outcomes up on the whiteboard. We've got everybody with their syllabus. We're trying to move away from that. Courses don't belong to people. Courses belong to programs. But we had everybody with their syllabus. And one of the faculty members, who is now retired happily, not unhappily, kind of raised her hand and she said, "My course isn't relevant." And we're like, "Well, wait, what do you mean?" And she goes, "My course doesn't map to a single outcome in our program. It's not relevant anymore. It used to be relevant, but it's not relevant anymore." And she came to that conclusion on her own through this process, through walking through it together. If we had contacted her and said, "Dr. So-and-so, we're taking away course 1, 2, 3, 4 because it isn't relevant to the program," she would have gone kicking and screaming, and we would have had a big mess on our hands. She was a long-term tenured faculty member. At the time, she was the only female full professor in our ranks. So it was really a great experience that we came to it collaboratively, and she helped design new courses that did fit the program outcomes. So that was kind of a fun one. I teach doctoral students. I have a doctoral student who's been in charge of the curriculum mapping for her private high school. And she came to see me last week and we're sitting down and she goes, "Well, I'm just going to come up with them. I'm just going to develop the curriculum map for all of the course outcomes and how they map to all the program outcomes. And then I'll just give them to all the faculty." And I told her this story and I said, "You know, you really can't do it that way. You've really got to find a way where everybody has part of the process. Everybody gets to be engaged. Everybody gets to experience part of it." And she goes, "Well, I don't know why. I mean, I'm just going to do it and then give it to them." And because she's in a doctoral program and we do lots of interactive learning and lots of student engagement, I said, "Well, let me ask you, if the next time we have class and we break you out into breakout teams," and I picked a name of a participant in her program that she doesn't necessarily particularly appreciate that well, "we're going to let John be the one for your team. So for your team, what he's going to do is the first 30 minutes of the breakout, he's going to go decide what your team's answers are. And then for the last 10 minutes, he's going to tell your team so that you're ready to present. And she goes, oh my God, you can't do that. That wouldn't be appropriate. So it was so funny because she said, all right, that's an analogy I can live with. But she just really thought the school had said, hey, you're in charge of the curriculum mapping process. She thought she would just go map them. So really, really important that this be a collaborative process. Resistance will probably still be high, but people are more likely to actually find the lack of relevance in their courses if they're the ones finding it as opposed to just being told. All right. With all of that said, how many people do we have? Okay, I'm going to do breakout rooms with about 5 people in them. So we're going to go to a breakout room, and I am going to post a file for you that has this slide that we have right here in front of us. So that everybody will have that. And I'm going to open breakout rooms. We're going to give you 7 minutes in the breakout room. And what we want you to do is just kind of as you can, and those of you that are structural designers, you may have to pull something off one of your websites, but examine some program level outcomes. Okay, some current program level outcomes. Look and see if they are clear and measurable. We've gotten really good at doing it at the course level, but are we doing it at the program level? Or would you say that we're designing quality occupational therapists who can go do so-and-so? What is it that they're supposed to be able to do? And kind of talk about amongst yourselves, amongst your group, if you at your institution have actually examined this alignment process from the program to the course level, as opposed to just the course and unit level. All right, so I'm going to open the breakout rooms. And that file is posted so that you can still see the questions even after you've gone to the breakout rooms. And we will be back in 7 minutes. All right, everybody should be joining us in the next few seconds. Thank you so much. I hope you all got to know each other a little bit. I'm sorry about the one room that only had 2 people. I'll try to fix that before the next one. All right, everybody, thanks so much. Appreciate you exercising that. Would a couple of you be willing to speak out and tell us just a little bit about what your group discussed, what you found?
Beth,
Anybody out there willing to share?
Beth, this is Angela Staten. And can you hear me? Can you hear me?
All right.
Yes, we can hear.
On.
We can hear Angela.
Maybe we can get you to share a little bit on another one.
I was just.
I hear
one
you,
of the
Angela.
things we discovered pretty quickly is that a lot of the faculty really were like, we don't understand this. Okay, fine. You've got that big funnel in the design. How do we actually figure out how to do this? So we went out and did a whole lot of research on curriculum mapping across the country. And we found some really great design ones. There were some that were designed by course, some that were designed by outcome, especially in the separately accredited programs and the discipline accredited programs. A lot of times those were mapped by the outcomes of the program. Thought I saw a hand up, but I lost it. Anybody that wants to speak is certainly willing to do that. Angela, please go ahead.
Can you hear me now, Beth?
We can hear you, Angela.
Okay, I was just going to talk to Beth and say that we didn't get a chance to see the document.
Am I the one not hearing?
Yes. Yes, she's not hearing.
Hold on, it may be my audio. I think it's me. I apologize.
Oops, that was supposed to go to Beth, but it went to everybody. Sorry about that. But did anybody else get the document in their groups? Because we didn't get the document, and the ones that were in my group, we were all newbies, and we don't have any department level outcomes. So we're interested in learning about what you all have discussed. So that was our part. That's all I wanted to say to Beth.
Okay, great. Can y'all hear me now?
Yes.
Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay, good.
Yes, we could hear you.
Is anybody that was not a newbie? Okay. As far as the document, I think you may need to open it before you go to your breakout room. So I'll post it in the chat before you go to the breakout room, and then I think you'll just need to click on it before you go to the breakout room so that you have the questions in front of you. Any group willing to share that had a little bit more experience? If not, I can jump right into what we've done on our campus.
Mona, do you?
Okay,
share?
so yes.
Sure, I could. Yeah, we had a
okay.
bit of a discussion because we were all more on the instructional design end. And I happened to have a program that just came through for occupational therapy. So I just threw one of them in the chat, and all the instructional designers were mortified because there was 3 verbs.
No.
They were appraise, integrate, and apply.
It was
Yeah.
great. It made our whole day. I mean, you know, there you go. And
That's fun. Okay.
I'm a dean of academic technology, and it scared me. So there you go.
Understood. Absolutely. All right. So this is what we did to try to make it easier. Our program decided to adopt one that had the specific program level outcomes. And even though I don't have them here, I'm willing to share them later. Each one of those outcomes behind it is 2 or 3 really good, strong Bloom's level verbs. So just so that you know, that's what we have. And we built this map to help faculty be able to figure out how to do the curriculum map. So I know the type is tiny. I'm going to zoom in just a second, but we have the program level outcomes across the top, and we have the core coursework across the left. And then at the bottom, we even have a section on the elective coursework so that gets incorporated as well. So if I zoom in just a little bit for you, what this showed you is, so the outcome 1, our program is in learning and leadership. Underneath that outcome, a handful of these courses introduce, practice, reinforce. And that's what we've used to do the different mapping. And I'm just going to zoom in again a little bit tighter on it. These are the keywords that we use for that, for the key. So I is introduced, P is practiced, R is reinforced, C is competency, and M is mastery. So again, just trying to make sure that the instructional designers working along with the faculty understood what that meant when they put a letter in there. What does that letter actually mean for them? So again, this is our big overall course map that we do. Now, if I go click on any given outcome, this is where I actually segue you beyond my kind of made up program to course level outcome standards to 3.1, 4.1, 5.1. When we go in tight, so the learning and leadership outcome has these two primary outcomes: differentiate and articulate leadership and learning theory, and a lot of other words, describe and articulate leadership and learning styles. We went out and we pulled randomly from some of the syllabi just to give examples of some of the course outcomes for courses that map to that particular program level outcome. So again, really making sure that all of the terms were good, strong, measurable verbs. And so no knows, no understand, no student will want to, or something like that. And then we also took it a step further down that level, and we looked at what is the embedded coursework? What are the actual course assignments that relate to that, or course activities? So in this particular one, the embedded coursework is there's conceptual application papers, there are directed discussions. And then at the program level, the comprehensive assessment, which is their final culminating exam to move on to the next level, critical reflection on this topic, critical synthesis, and things that go across the program. So that's kind of how we built all of that. So I'm going to try to do this breakout a little better and make sure everybody has the document first. So for breakout exercise 2, there's a PDF in the chat that you should be able to open. So if you want to do that, though really it's just these two questions. So in this breakout, we want you to think of a specific, or if you can't think of one, pull the website and go find one program outcome, and then identify some potential courses in a program that you work with that would align, or hopefully should align, with this outcome. And this time I want you to take a slightly different spin on your discussion and look at maybe whether some of the opportunities and challenges that you have. We all end up with opportunities and challenges when we go through these things. And so we want to just kind of see if you're able to identify some of them. Does that make sense? Everybody clear on what we're going to do? Everybody able to access the document? All right, I'm going to send you to breakout rooms again. Again, I think I've balanced them a little better this time. So you're going to have 7 minutes. Okay. There's everybody coming back. Thanks so much. Now, can we get any of the groups to share on this one? Anybody feeling brave and willing to share out there?
Excuse me?
Yes, please.
Hey,
Someone trying to share?
I see Manuel muting and unmuting, or unmuting and then muting very quickly again. So that may be.
All right, well, we'll just walk on through, and if anybody wants to jump in and share, please do, or please feel free to share in the chat. So rather than break you out a third time, I thought that I would having trouble with audio. Okay, Manuel, no problem. If you want to type what you wanted to say in the chat, we'll be glad to try to respond to it. So what I want to do is give you a little bit of homework, because if I don't give you a little bit of homework, we haven't actually met learning outcome 3. So in making sure that our course aligns and that all of our outcomes are met, what I want you to do for homework, if this is something you're interested in, is identify a specific course that you're involved with, as an instructional designer or as a faculty member at your institution. Identify the specific learning outcomes, and in some way or another, working along with the faculty or your faculty, map these outcomes to the appropriate program level outcomes for your program. Work as a team to try to be able to do that, find ways to work together and figure out how to do that. So this is kind of the homework to get you started moving forward. And at this point, I'm going to open up to questions or to anybody else who wants to share some of what they're doing.
We have
And you
a,
can put, go ahead.
I was just going to say, we have a quiet bunch this afternoon.
Yeah, we do. Feel free to type your question if you don't want to unmute your microphone and talk. I'm very willing to share any answers I can about what we've done.
Hello, Beth.
Yes.
This is Angela. I was just speaking to my group that I was in, and I'm at I've taken this course just as a refresher because we're doing a review, an internal review on a couple of courses, and we're doing those courses. We're not doing them at the program level. We're doing at the course level.
Right.
So I guess what I would try and use is even though I'm doing it at a course level, I would like to know the program level, because I don't know what their program levels are for the course that I'm doing. So it would be nice, interesting to find out if they do match up. And I didn't know where to start, but going backwards from the back end all the way back up is also good. So we're doing course level outcomes. We're doing course level, and we're going to do module level to go back and make sure that those modules align with the course outcomes.
Yeah, that's a good idea. And then look at the program website, even if there aren't clearly articulated ones. Look at the program website and see if you're able to find a way to figure out what they might be. Like I said, we had one faculty member who just said, we were talking about the process in our graduate council, and she said, we're not going to design program outcomes because we know when they're ready. The faculty just know. And it caused a good bit of consternation, and we had to get our dean involved, which was not the way we wanted to do it. But it was just a little bit difficult. I've got a question on the mapping spreadsheet showing the program outcomes. So I have an example of the definition of what those program outcome headers are. I do. I actually have this. This is an Excel spreadsheet. So all of it links, all the different things link to it. Let me see if I can go back to the slide, and whoever asked the question, we can figure out. So on this one, the program outcome headers, what they are you asking like what's in program outcome number 1?
Yes, I was asking what was the more description about that outcome, because the header is
Right.
leadership and learning.
Right.
Is that
So,
I'm sorry. So that's more the definition of these first two paragraphs.
yeah, the first 2 lines. So if you were on our program website, what you would see is a scholar of leadership and learning will be able to differentiate and articulate leadership and learning constructs and how they interconnect and all those other words, and then describe and articulate leadership and learning styles, as well as to demonstrate how they fit. So that's the way that we've done that. And those are linked. So I don't have the Excel up for you guys because PowerPoint just tends to be a little nicer in Zoom than a lot of other programs do, though I might get lucky. Let's see.
I had a question when you get a minute about these.
Yes.
This is Scott Standifer. Are the requirements for PLOs different than SLOs? Because to me, the PLOs you were showing seemed kind of compound, like there were too many pieces.
Well,
and
they
I don't want to be
are.
overly critical. I'm just trying to
No,
ask if that's.
feel free to be overly critical. This is a doctoral program. So what we've done is we've designed competency areas. And so so at the end of the program, when they do their comprehensive assessment, they have to demonstrate their ability to meet each of these competency areas. So that's 1 through 5 are competency areas. So they are a bit complex and a bit intense, but often a course level outcome is going to be a little more complex than, say, a unit level outcome. So the unit level
Right.
might be describe, and the course level be able to articulate. So
It seemed like there were compounds. If you could go back to that screen, it seemed like there were,
and they would be much simpler if they were at the bachelor's level.
yeah, that's true.
And we have a program that's coming out. I haven't got the map completely finished. I've got it started. I'm certainly willing to share. Anybody wants to email me, I'm willing to share these absolute spreadsheets.
Like at number 2, it says examine and articulate, find and compare and contrast. That's just like you're starting to pile a lot of things into one outcome. It seems like there should be a bigger term. That's just my reaction. I didn't know what other people thought, or if there's a different standard for the PLOs. Maybe they're supposed to be more complex.
Right. Well, I think it depends. I think if you go back, and like I said, we're just trying to kind of do this the best we can. The QM standards, they have the course level and back to the unit level. The last class I took with QM, one of the things they talked about was don't have the course level outcomes where you just read the course level outcome and you know what the deliverables are. Make sure that it's broad enough and showing enough, and then use those unit level outcomes. Like if it's a discussion, be able to describe the so-and-so process.
Sure, that makes sense.
So, and because these are competency areas, we're asking them to define. I don't think I can quickly, though I'm certainly willing to email. Like I said, we do have a bachelor's level one that's just coming out. The statements are much simpler.
Sure. Okay. That's all. I was just curious.
That bachelor's level program. Absolutely. Any other questions? I can just quickly show how this is built. So each of the outcomes maps to its own page, and then everything maps. And then I mentioned earlier that we also have our electives map. So we don't always know what their elective coursework is going to be in, but one of our outcomes with their comp assessment is their application to their professional practice and their decision making. And so all of the electives are supposed to somehow be getting to all of those particular outcomes. And then the last outcome, which I can't see because I have all the little notes up here in the chat, is create new knowledge. And that one's pretty much just the dissertation and the prep for the dissertation. Because that is one of the things we expect of a doctoral student. Again, much simpler at the bachelor's level. Angela, did I finish answering your question about how to find those? I was going to touch on one more piece. If a program is accredited, if it's nursing or occupational therapy, somebody mentioned that they had occupational therapy, or any accredited program, the chances are very good that your program learning outcomes are already mapped for you by the accrediting body. A lot of those accrediting bodies, I know with social work, with OT, with interior design, where I used to be a department head. And so I was working with all of those different departments. They didn't have a choice on their program level outcomes. They were required to use the program level outcomes that were assigned by the accrediting bodies.
Okay,
So
because I'm
that's-
at the School of Nursing,
Mhm.
the School of Nursing, and they may have that. I don't know, but
I bet
that
they
may
do.
be. Yeah.
I really do bet that what you're going to be looking at for the program level outcomes are those outcomes established by the different nursing accrediting bodies. I know that our nursing does that. In fact, we've got a couple of programs that actually have to answer to 2 different accrediting bodies. Our nurse anesthetist program answers to the regular nursing accrediting body and the nurse anesthetist, and it makes it really tough for them.
Oh, thank you, Beth.
Sure. Any other questions? Well, thank you very much for attending. I appreciate it. If I can send you any of these documents, feel free to shoot me an email and I'll be glad to do that.
Thank you so much, Beth. That was pretty enlightening for me to see. And I appreciate everybody joining us this afternoon as well, and hope that you have a great rest of your afternoon and great rest of your conference. And I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.